Now, Turkish police have been heavily using the tear gas, often, though, mixed with pepper spray. Now, over the past decade, the country has increased its imports of the chemicals 50-fold. Human rights groups have raised the alarm, pointing to the excessive use of force by security services. RT's Polly Boyka has a look now at the possible long-term effects of the ongoing crackdown.
An all-too-familiar sight for many Europeans. Anti-austerity protests in Greece, Spain and Germany. Gay marriage demonstrations in France, and now anti-government protests in Turkey. Whatever the occasion, for these European governments, tear gas is the answer.
Tear gas was invented in part to shut people up. You're thinking about, this is where communication meets politics. We're talking about a technology, a weapon that actually inhibits people from being able to speak, that enters into the throat, that enters into the lungs, that forces people to kind of disperse, right? So it is actually a technology that is the complete opposite of what freedom of assembly and freedom of speech look like.
The Geneva Convention prohibits the use of tear gas in international war, and yet it's perfectly legal to use against civilian populations.
The problem with all of these agents is their toxicity, and the long-term effects are worked out primarily on sort of, if you like, prime-age adult males. And we know very well that the CS and those other gases affects differentially people who are old, people who are pregnant, people who are sick, and children.
The past 80 years have seen reports of lost eyes, cranial damage, and even deaths as a result of tear gas canisters.
It's still somehow legal, somehow okay for companies manufacturing tear gas to call themselves non-lethal. Meanwhile, the canisters come with labels on them that say, this is deadly, this could be deadly. And how is that even okay?
You see the tear gas being used increasingly and extensively, particularly because of the intense civil unrest which is developing across Europe as a result of the economic crises. You see it in Greece, you see it in Spain, Italy. It's not just what's been happening in Turkey. And they are weapons which are inevitably the weapons of a regime which is attempting to suppress the protests of people.
Behind these gates is where it all began, at the Porton Down military research base in England's rural Wiltshire. CS gas was developed and tested here secretly in the 1950s. Since then, it's become a profitable industry sold to police forces the world over in the form of tear gas and pepper spray. In the past 4 years, Britain has sold almost as much tear gas to Europe as it has to the Middle East.
Tear gas is a weapon system. It's manufactured by a number of companies, and for those companies, it's obviously extremely profitable to be selling that. And the more civil unrest, the more it's used, the more they're selling, and therefore the more money they're making. Now, what we would say as Amnesty is that profit must never, ever, ever come before human rights. And what we really need is governments to ensure that when they're licensing this stuff, they are stopping all licenses of any tear gas, all supplies of any tear gas where there is a clear risk, as in the case currently in Turkey, that that tear gas will be used in the suppression of human rights.
Westminster is currently reviewing the export licenses to Turkey in light of the Istanbul disturbances. But for those worried about its increasing use, CS gas is merely a symptom of more fundamental issues surrounding democracy in Europe.
Why are there so many people dissenting right now? Why is it that we've had such a breakdown in supposedly democratic countries that we can no longer have any kind of mediation or dialogue with their population? What kinds of failures of representative government are we seeing that where we go is, should we poison them with tear gas, or should we, take out machine guns and tanks against them? What happened to all the other range of things that exist, between having a conversation and poisoning a population?
Polly Boyka, RT, London.